What's up? Welcome to Black and Azul episode number 65 post-game after the San Jose Earthquakes dismantled the LA Galaxy by a scoreline of 4-0. This was the 75th California Clasico in the regular season. Matías Almeyda certainly has the better of the LA Galaxy. Nick Lima all over the pitch tonight. We'll analyze the performances, break it all down, bring you the live press conferences as well, hear from Matías Almeyda and some others. But first, I'd like to welcome back Jamon Moore to the show, Alex Morgan, and Joel Soria. Jamon, I'll start with you. Your thoughts on tonight?
Well, I think it was the most fun that we've had watching this team since the MLS is Back tournament, specifically the game against Real Salt Lake, where they won 5-2. 4 goals was a good night on any given night. They kept the pressure on. They never quite turned it off. There were, I think, some concerns as the game went on that these players were going to get tired and potentially leak one and let the Galaxy back in. Great save by JT Marcinkowski with his foot prevented that from happening. And then the Quakes just put sub people on and put the pedal to the floor and got 2 more goals. And my goodness, I mean, the goals tonight from the outside backs were absolutely fantastic. They're going to be highlight reel goals, I'm sure, for the PR team. They're going to love to use those. But yeah, just a fun game to watch. I think Joel said it, in one of his tweets, when Bushido ball works, it's a lot of fun to watch. Tonight, it worked.
And Joel, over to you. Bushido ball?
Bushido ball is great when it works. It's a high risk, high reward system as we know it. But look, to me, tonight, the collective and individual performances, whether it be the offensive creativity, the defensive dominance, the actually doing something with possession superiority, the good performance, the stellar performance, I should say, from Nick Lima, the good performance from Fierro, Rios, Judson. I think that all of those are just as positive as the 3 points. A stellar night for the San Jose Earthquakes against their heated rivals, the Los Angeles Galaxy, who are in a desperate situation right now.
Alex Morgan, we were sitting here probably about 3 evenings ago. I think it might have been 4 evenings ago. I've lost track of time now. And we had started the show after the Quakes had lost to Portland, their first loss in 4 games. They come out here and they beat their rival 4-0. What do you make of that?
Yeah, tonight was a really competent performance, Charles. I think the Quakes dominated the Galaxy in every stat, in every facet of the match. They took control from the opening whistle, and they never let go. Now, yes, this is a really, really bad Galaxy team. They've lost, I think, 6 consecutive games now, and Chicharito was just awful tonight. But that really shouldn't take away from a really good performance from the Quakes. I think it was their biggest win under Matías Almeyda. And look, Andy Rios played fantastically. Nick Lima had a good night. And if the Quakes keep playing like this, I think they're definitely on track to make the playoffs. 538 had their odds at 34% before the game, but now it's 61%. So that victory was absolutely huge. And I think they really look like genuine contenders right now.
Let's talk about Nick Lima. From the offset, the right back looked like he was going to be involved in every single move that this Quakes team had from the first minute to the 90th minute. And he grabs himself the first goal right before halftime. And he gets a second one in the 90th minute as well. Jamon, we've seen Nick Lima perform in a role where he can get up and down the flanks, but we've also seen him be able to take up some space in central midfield and help out his central midfield compatriots. We've seen this at the national team level, and now we see it here against the Galaxy. We saw him do that very effectively tonight. Just such an engine in that midfield, and then just flying up and down that line.
Yeah, there's some interesting tactical things that I was noticing as the first half wore on. In particular, was how central Nick Lima had been getting and how central Christian Espinoza had been getting. Wondo often drifting and interchanging with Christian Espinoza. And Christian Espinoza looked like he was the striker, and Wondo looked like he was the right wing at times. And then centrally, Nick Lima would come inside, and Judson, I think someone else pointed out, was starting to pick up Pavone. and which was allowing Nick Lima to get forward. And I mean, it was perfect in terms of, I think it kept the Galaxy guessing. The offense looked fluid. The ball movement was much better. And it just, everything that the Quakes were doing looked dangerous. And, it's been a long time since we've seen it happen for this long of a stretch within a match where they just continuously look dangerous. Like they could score almost any time, down the field. Part of that, I'm sure, is a poor Galaxy defense, but don't discount how much this means for the confidence of the players. And also, I wouldn't discount how much we've had pretty much the same starting 11 now for a few games. And they're starting, I think, to really get the hang of working with each other. Obviously, they ran into a Portland gauntlet, a very good team on the road, but they got it back together tonight, and they look dangerous, like I said, pretty much every opportunity.
All right, looks like Matías Almeyda is here. We'll talk about Nick Lima, Andy Rios, Tommy Thompson, JT Marcinkowski right after his post-match press conference.
Following the Quakes 4-0 win over the LA Galaxy, we are now joined by head coach Matías Almeyda. We'll start by taking a few questions in English and then a couple in Spanish. So let's start with Alex Morgan.
Hi, Matías. Congrats on the victory tonight. And I like the purple shirt. This win takes you guys to 7th place now. Where do you see this team as being in the playoff race, and how confident are you about making the playoffs?
Esta victoria, el equipo queda en 7º lugar. ¿Cómo sentís ahora que San José está en la carrera para entrar al playoff y qué tan confiado estás que van a llegar al playoff?
Primero, buenas noches. Gracias por las felicitaciones.
Good evening. Thank you for the congratulations.
Yo estoy igual que cuando estábamos perdiendo.
I'm the same as when we were losing.
Tranquilo, siendo consciente del día a día.
I'm calm, being conscious of the day-to-day.
Hoy, a diferencia de esos días, estoy muy feliz.
Today, differently than those days, I'm happy.
La felicidad me dura hasta mañana.
And the happiness lasts for me up till tomorrow.
Y mañana sé que hay que volver a trabajar y preparar lo que viene.
And tomorrow I know we got to get back to work and get ready for what's to come.
Nosotros vamos partido tras partido.
We're going game after game.
Lo único que nos interesaba era, ante la adversidad de tantos resultados, digamos, negativos que habíamos tenido.
The only thing that I'm interested in is that after the adversity that we've had with those negative results,
mostrar que por intermedio de nuestro juego podíamos redoblar la apuesta y salir de ese lugar.
we could, through our game, double down the bet and get out of that place.
Me pone muy feliz por los jugadores y por toda la gente que trabaja en San José.
I'm very happy for the players and everybody who works for San
Y
Jose,
sobre todo por la gente,
especially for the fans,
porque darle una alegría de un clásico, sobre todo en pandemia, creo que es algo especial y lindo.
because giving them the joy of winning a derby, especially during a pandemic, it's special and it's nice.
Thank you, Matías. Alicia Rodriguez.
Thank you. Matías, I wanted to ask about, basically the game was played entirely on your terms. I mean, you guys completely dictated the match, even though you were on the road. Were you a little bit surprised that the Galaxy kind of relented as far as giving the ball and letting you dictate the game? Or is that something you're not really that concerned about?
San José dominó el partido, aunque sea un partido visitante, y todo el ritmo del partido. ¿Vos estás sorprendido que Galaxy dejó que entregó la posesión o es algo que esperabas y no te preocupa tanto?
No, sobre todo después de un triunfo y por el respeto que le tengo y el cariño que le tengo al staff de Galaxy, prefiero no emitir una opinión.
After a victory and because of the respect and admiration that I have for the Galaxy's coaching staff, I'd rather not give this opinion.
Thank you, Matías. Jamon Moore.
Hi, Coach. Good evening, and congratulations on the win. Tonight, Nick Lima looked very effective getting forward and getting into the attack. Also, a nice goal from Tommy Thompson when he was making a run in behind the defense. It looked like you were trying some different things tonight offensively, or is it more that these players have been playing together now for several games and they're getting more comfortable? how do you attribute the success offensively tonight?
Hoy Lima se vio que jugó bien, especialmente en ataque, y también Tommy metió un gol ganándole la espalda a la línea de defensa de Galaxy. Parece que esta noche el equipo intentó algunas cosas diferentes en ataque, o solo es que el equipo ya se entiende más y ya por más partidos se está jugando mejor a Azul.
Creo que hemos repetido esta clase de partidos muchas veces, no con el triunfo y los goles.
I think we've repeated this type of performance many times, not with the goals and the result.
Inclusive cuando iba mal buscábamos este sistema de juego,
Even when things were going badly, we were looking for this system of play,
porque siempre ha sido analizado el sistema de juego defensivo nuestro,
because always if you analyze our defensive system of play,
pero pocas veces se detuvo a ver el sistema ofensivo y de control de juego.
but few times we were able to achieve the system of play offensively and controlling the game.
Nosotros estamos contentos con el triunfo de hoy,
We're happy with today's victory,
pero no nos sorprende que Nick haya hecho gol o que Tommy haya hecho gol, porque hace 10 días hizo un gol Paul Marí y hace 15 días hizo un gol Marcos López. Entonces, es un estilo que venimos desde hace rato y que cuando las jugadas terminan en gol es como que se notan más, pero hay muchas acciones parecidas que no terminan en gol y sí hay una búsqueda.
but it does not surprise me that Nick has scored or that Tommy has scored, because if you go back 10 days, Paul Marie scored a goal. If you go back 15 days, Marcos Lopez scored a goal. It's nicer when they're able to finish the play, but it's not surprising because we're always looking for that.
Thank you, Matías. Let's take one last question in English from Alex Morgan.
Okay.
Hi, Matías. For a couple of weeks after the team sold Magnus Eriksson in the summer, it felt like you guys really missed him in the middle. But now that Andy Rios is getting more involved in the goal scoring and the distribution, do you feel like you've filled that gap now and Rios has taken that role?
Después de que se vendió Magnus, por un par de semanas se vio como que el equipo le costaba un poco. Ahora que Andy Rios está más involucrado con los goles y asistencias, y sentí como que Andy ya está llenando ese hueco que dejó Magnus.
Creo que como todo lleva una adaptación.
I think like anybody, it takes in an adaptation period.
Magnus creo que había sido el único jugador que jugó todos los partidos conmigo.
I think Magnus was the only player that played each game with me.
Y bueno, el cambio se sabía que iba a llevar un tiempo,
We knew the change would take time,
pero creo que Río tiene características un poco diferentes a las de Magnus,
I think Rios has different characteristics than Magnus,
porque no deja de ser un delantero que llega al área a hacer gol, a lastimar.
because he's still a striker who gets in the box to hurt.
Él tiene una gran claridad para abrir el juego,
He's very sharp to open the game up.
es un luchador como Magnus,
He's a fighter like Magnus.
y le iba a llevar un tiempo adaptarse. Creo que hoy estamos viendo al Andy que nosotros contratamos,
And it was going to take time for him to adapt. I think today we see the Andy that we wanted to sign.
lo mismo con Fierro,
Same thing with Fierro,
el crecimiento de Judson,
Judson's growth,
de Jackson.
Jackson's.
Bueno, creo que es el tiempo y necesitamos más tiempo todavía,
I think it's time, and we still need more time,
porque yo no me puedo olvidar que estamos en una pandemia donde se hace difícil entrenar, la verdad.
because I cannot forget that we're living through a pandemic where it's hard to train. That's the truth.
Entonces por ahí hay muchos cambios entre partido y partido por este motivo para todos los equipos.
And I think there's many changes game after game, but for each team because of this reason.
Pero realmente veo un equipo que puede ganar, puede empatar o le puede ir mal,
But you see a team that can win, lose, or draw, or things can go wrong.
pero hemos logrado que tenga respeto por la camiseta que lleva puesta.
But we were able to achieve for them to have the respect for the jersey that they have on.
Juegan con identidad.
They play with an identity.
San José ya tiene una identidad
San Jose now has an identity,
y ellos están buscando y nosotros una identidad propia de San José.
and they're looking for, and now we're looking for a self-identity for San Jose.
Y para eso se requiere del tiempo,
And for that, it requires
de
time.
cumplir procesos.
You have to achieve these processes.
El tiempo es sabio
Time is wise,
y ahí es donde se concretan los proyectos.
and that's how projects become concrete.
Como me quedan 2 años más todavía de
I still have
contrato,
2 years left in my contract.
nosotros tenemos que seguir creciendo para que nuestro dueño John Fisher me haga 10 años más de contrato.
We have to keep growing. That way, our owner, John Fisher, gives me a 10-year contract.
Thank you, Matías. Let's take 2 questions in Spanish, starting with Carlos Ramirez.
Profe, buenas noches, ¿cómo le va? Carlos Mauricio Ramírez de Telemundo, un fuerte abrazo.
Un abrazo, Carlos.
Profe, bueno, primero felicidades por el triunfo. Tocó un punto que quería tocar, justamente, los goles de los laterales, profe. De los últimos 11 goles de su plantel en las victorias, 6 fueron de laterales. El de Shea contra el AFC, el de Marcos contra el Galaxy, el de Paul contra Vancouver y los 3 hoy, 2 de Nick y 1 de Tommy Thompson. En su opinión, ¿qué cambió del equipo? Porque tácticamente los cambios han sido realmente pocos. ¿Qué ha cambiado de la ejecución de su equipo para que los laterales ahora tengan semejante protagonismo? Y cortito, profe, nada más, una de cortesía, ¿cómo está el profe Benjamín Galindo? Que no sabemos nada de él. Gracias.
Sí, la primera, Carlos, creo que nosotros el año pasado en Orlando el juego ha sido muy parecido. Y lo que pasa es que termina todo llamando más la atención cuando hay un gol de un lateral. Porque en el mundo los laterales hacen pocos goles. Bueno, se ha dado ahora, últimamente nuestros laterales han llegado y han terminado acciones de gol. Pero el juego sigue siendo el mismo de San José, no ha cambiado. Y me pone contento por ello, porque cuando llegué a San José les dije que yo dirijo a los equipos donde todos corren y todos juegan. Y vamos en esa búsqueda, donde todos tienen que correr para defender y todos tienen que correr y moverse para jugar. Y después, bueno, el gol es una felicidad para cada uno de ellos y está bien que sea así. Con respecto a lo de Benja, estamos en permanente contacto con él. Benja va mejorando día a día, va progresando mucho con su rehabilitación y bueno, siempre lo extrañamos, él lo sabe, le damos trabajo que haga, más el trabajo que tiene él para su rehabilitación y siempre estamos al pendiente de nuestro amigo y compañero.
Thank you, Matías. And one last question from Joel Soria.
Buenas noches, Matías. Felicidades en el triunfo. Me da curiosidad de lo que dice del proyecto y lo que menciona que a través del tiempo, con más tiempo y obvio sin la pandemia, Dios quiera que eso pase muy pronto, va a poder desarrollar esa parte, ¿no?, del equipo. Hace pocos días se dio la noticia, no sé si se dio cuenta, que la liga va a introducir una liga de reservas, de jugadores de reserva. Me gustaría saber sus pensamientos sobre esa liga.
Sí, Joel, mira, nosotros el proyecto viene porque, ¿se acuerdan? Yo muchas veces he dicho que no soy un resultadista y voy detrás de un proyecto ya presentado en compañía de nuestro director deportivo, Jesse, con el diálogo como corresponde con nuestro dueño. Él sabe cada paso que hacemos, por qué lo hacemos, para qué queremos hacer diferentes pasos. Y en sí este año ha sido un poco, y seguirá siendo un poco cortado, porque realmente hay un gran esfuerzo de la liga por continuar este torneo. Los jugadores y todos nosotros lo hacemos, pero no deja de ser algo anormal, la verdad, ¿no? De jugar cada 3 días, de recuperar jugadores rápidos. No hay pretexto en eso, pero no deja de ser algo anormal, ¿no? Por lo que se vive. Yo creo que va porque de hecho hoy, si ustedes ven el plantel nuestro, hay un montón de jóvenes. Y hoy ingresaron un montón de jóvenes que yo quiero darles minutos en los partidos importantes, que se sientan ganadores. El otro día me preguntaban por qué no hice cambios y por qué íbamos perdiendo y no quería lastimar a esos chicos. Entonces yo sé cómo protegerlos, porque creo tener algo de experiencia y trato de no equivocarme con respecto a cómo lo llevo. Van bien, se van identificando con un sistema de juego, se van identificando con un estilo de entrenar, con un estilo de vivir en San José, vivir el fútbol en San José, y todo eso lleva un tiempo, no es tan fácil. La otra era lo que la liga, si la liga logra y los clubes logran dar este paso, es un paso a nivel mundial muy grande que da. Y nosotros los entrenadores vamos a estar totalmente felices de saber que en realidad vamos a poder seguir aumentando el proyecto de la formación, de tener jugadores jóvenes que buscar un mismo sistema, buscar entrenar juntos. Bueno, es el cambio que merece esta liga. Si la liga da este cambio, es para que las demás ligas lo puedan ver y que realmente se empiece a creer de una vez por todas y no, digamos, que no se ponga en duda este torneo y esta liga. Esta liga quiere crecer y está apuntando a otra cosa, a diferencia de hace 10 años atrás, ¿no? Donde se contrataban los jugadores prácticamente para un retiro especial. Hoy se están contratando jóvenes, los jóvenes que vienen antes de pasar por Sudamérica, México, hoy eligen venir acá y de acá van a Europa. Entonces, la liga va. Este año estuvo interrumpida por muchos motivos, esto de la pandemia. Ahora, no podemos dejar de reconocer todo el esfuerzo que hacen y que hicieron para que jugáramos un torneo en Orlando. Realmente no es para minimizar. Lo que se hizo en Orlando fue algo espectacular, que nos permitió a aquellos que vivimos el fútbol, que amamos nuestra profesión, nos permitieron trabajar con seguridad. Eso es impagable. Entonces, está bueno, muchas veces criticamos para construir, pero cuando hay que tirarle los laureles reales, porque lo merecen, creo que yo, digamos, lo deseo. Con todo el corazón deseo que la liga dé ese paso adelante con respecto a ese proyecto. Dios quiera.
All right. Thank you very much, Matías and Augustine. Congratulations again on the victory.
Quería agradecer que la ropa me la está dando Banana Republic y Gap.
I wanted to say thanks because I'm getting my clothes from Banana Republic and Gap.
Porque siempre me preguntan por la ropa. Bueno, ahí está el secreto.
They always ask us about our clothes, so there's the secret.
All right. Thank you very much, Matías. Wondolowski and Andy Rios shortly.
So there you have it. Matías Almeyda saying he gets his clothes from Banana Republic and Gap. Since everybody has been wondering where he gets his clothes from, he said the happiness after this result will last for me until tomorrow. We got to get back to work. He says we're going game after game. He also mentioned that he was very happy for the fans, giving them the joy of winning a derby, especially during a pandemic. He had said that it's not a surprise that his outside backs scored goals this evening, that Tommy and Nick both scored goals 7 days ago. Paul Maurice scored 15 days ago. Marco Lopez scored. He also mentioned that he has 2 years left of his contract, but the way that Andy Rios is growing and his team is growing, he feels that John Fisher could give him a 10-year contract. He was, of course, joking in that moment, but you have Matías Almeyda extremely happy and, an upbeat Almeyda after this as well. I'm joined with the rest of the team here, Joel Soria, Alex Morgan. Alex, what did you make of his post-match comments here?
I think that was the most relaxed and the most playful I've seen Almeyda in a long time. I think the commenters have caught it. He said he gets his clothes from Gap. Obviously, Gap and Banana Republic are owned by John Fisher, who owns the Quakes as well. He just feels like a weight has been lifted from his shoulders. And I think for good reason. There were so many reasons for the Quakes to be positive tonight, and none more than Nick Lima, who got 2 goals from right back. Almeyda, was throwing praise at him in the press conference. I just think Lima is so much more confident going forward when he's on that right side. In San Jose's last game against the Galaxy, both of their goals came from Lima's crosses. Obviously, his service is better with his right foot. And then I think he's also more comfortable stepping into the middle on the right. That's something he's also done for Greg Berhalter and the U.S. men's national team. And that's how he scored both goals tonight. And I think it feels like Almeyda has finally recognized his utility on that right side, and that Lima's finally
Joel
found his
Soria,
place.
you had a question,
system.
and Matías Almeyda elaborated for a long time at the end, talking about youngsters and about the project. Care to shed light a little bit about what he had to say there?
Yeah, of course, Charles. I asked Matías on the report that came out from The Athletic, specifically from Jeff Ruder a couple of days ago regarding MLS relaunching a reserves league. And Matías was very adamant about it. He said that he prays to God literally that's what he said, that this actually comes to fruition. He also mentioned that such project would give MLS the position to make the next jump and would give it that much more validity as well. So look, I think that that's definitely going to be a good thing for the league to hear those words from Matías. And he also touched on, wanting that, or talking about how more time is going to allow this team to build that much more chemistry, is going to allow them to be that much more comfortable within the system, talking about how time is also going to benefit players like Rios and Fierro, who were having some issues in terms of adapting to the league's physicality, speed, and just overall nature. So a long-winded Matías. We know he's long-winded usually, but when he wins, he tends to go the extra mile. Today he did so. He gave a shout-out to Gap, to Banana Republic. I guess I'm doing that as well at the moment. Asked John Fisher for a 10-year contract. I mean, you guys can interpret that back home.
Yeah, he ended on those words, of course, Joel. Jamon, from the gaffer tonight, Matías Almeyda, what did you see from him, from his body language, and what did you make of what he said there?
Yeah, he got more relaxed as the press conference went on, and he kind of gave us that tidbit about his close at the end. Maybe he realized that we weren't trying to pick on him a couple games ago, and we asked about it and realized it was intended in fun. And kudos to Alex for mentioning the purple shirt at the beginning that I think prompted that. No, it was nice to see him kind of get relaxed and be able to have these conversations.
And now we're joined by Chris Wondolowski, and we'll hear his post-match comments.
Alicia Rodriguez.
Thank you, Chris. Congrats on the victory tonight. You guys are in really good form right now. You bounced back from that loss at the weekend. I mean, does it feel like everything that was going wrong, what was it, just a month ago or so, is kind of been overcome, and you guys have your sights fully on the playoffs at this point?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, to be honest, the message, and I remember talking to you guys, that our plan isn't going to change. We understand we need to fix a lot of things and fix some major problems, but we're going to stay the course. We still had belief, and we still do have belief that we're going to make a deep run and make it in the playoffs and make a run in the playoffs. And so that belief has never wavered. It's very nice to get some of the results, and so that it kind of snowballs, and really you can have a tangible points that you're getting, and you see where you are making the corrections. And I think that we still have ways to go, but I think that we've corrected a few of the things.
Thank you, Wanda. Let's go to Joel Soria.
Hey, good evening, and congrats on the win, Chris.
Thanks.
What does it mean to finally have players like Carlos Fierro and Andy Rios in rhythm, and not only in rhythm, but making the difference on the field?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that they're important pieces, and I'm so happy they put in so much work. It's so happy to see a lot of that hard work pay off, and to see them get the results and the goals and assists that I know that they've been working hard to get. And so, I think a lot of that, though, has to do with our play in general. I think that so much of our success is built into how we press, and also where we win the ball, but also how we possess the ball and be able to create chances. And I think that when we went through a spell where we weren't doing things defensively, a lot of it was because we weren't doing things offensively. I think they kind of went hand in hand, and the struggles kind of fed off of each other. And so I think that, once we kind of corrected one, the other one was able to come around. And, I think that these guys have been able to benefit from a lot of the hard work all over the field.
Thank you. Jamon Moore.
Hi, Chris. Congratulations, on the win tonight. 84 Cali Clásicos, by the way. That was your largest margin of victory ever. it seems like it was just, a few weeks ago we were talking about how you couldn't string 3 passes together. That was your quote. First off, what's changed in your mind? What's made the biggest difference in making this type of turnaround? But also, how do you carry this now into games like Seattle on Sunday? You struggled a little bit with Portland in the last game. And now how do you take wins against the Galaxy and Vancouver and turn them into wins against a team like Seattle? Thanks.
Yeah, so, I think that, again, one of the biggest turnarounds is how we execute our press. And I think that before we weren't doing it correctly, and when you don't, you get exposed. And so, again, I think that it kind of goes hand in hand. When our defensive pressure became correct, we win the ball in better areas. And when you do that, you're able to create more opportunities. You're able to possess the ball in their half and be able to open up the defense and also wear them down. I think many of our games, we wear teams down. And once you see about the 60th, 70th minute, that's when we really make our mark. I think against Portland, we actually had a good game plan. We played well. We had we had different lapses. We had a 5-minute lapse, so we let up 2 goals, and that kind of cost us the game. And then we're searching for the game after that. To be honest, I thought we played pretty well. How do we get wins against those great teams? I think that we have to execute for a full 90 minutes. I think that when we do execute the game plan, it's got to be to the fullest. I think that Portland punished our mistakes. We got caught in a flat line. We should never be playing flat line on the first cross, and punished us well. And then, a couple little mistakes here and there. But, I think that we've been able to right the ship, and I like where this team is headed. And so I don't think that we're going to change how we play. And it doesn't matter if we're playing against Galaxy or playing against Seattle. I think that we're going to play the same way and plan on 3 points.
Thank you, Wando. We have 2 more questions. We can start with Carlos Ramirez.
Hi, Wando. Carlos Ramirez, Telemundo. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. First of all, I need a W8 hat ASAP. That's a sick hat.
Thank you.
Number one.
Wando
Number 2. Now that we see a change of course in the team, does that affect your decision to come back next year or retire? I mean, does the outcome of the season determine that? Have you thought about it? Thanks.
I've definitely been giving some thought to next year, but right now it doesn't change anything because my whole thought is I'm putting everything into this season. Like I said, I gave some thought about next year, and I've come to the conclusion that I'm going to wait till the end of this year before anything. So every ounce of energy, every ounce of desire is going into this year and going into a playoff run and deep into a playoff push. And so that's kind of all that's on my mind right now. Is winning fun? Yes, absolutely. Do I love it? Yeah, it makes it even better. But I loved coming into practice even before, but it makes it all that much better. And again, if it was up to me, I'd be doing this till I was 94. So, yeah.
Thank you, Wando. One last question from Alex Morgan.
Hi, Chris. Congrats on the win. First of all, we're getting lots of comments about your hat. So if you are making them for sale, I think that's a potential branding opportunity right there. And secondly, this win now takes you guys to 7th place. Where do you see this team as being in the playoff race, and how confident are you at this juncture about making the playoffs?
I think, first of all, thank you about the hat. But, I think that the team is very confident and we want to make a push. I think that making the playoffs is first and foremost. We want to do that. We want to do that any way, shape, or form. I think that we learned a lot from last year, and I'm hoping that we learned a lot from our mistakes where we can't rely and just depend on the last day and just kind of throw everything against the wall. We have to be smart. We have to get points when we can. That being said, we want to host. We want to be in the top 4. I think that's kind of our sights right now, where we want to be and where we think we can be. We have a lot of work that we still need to do. I still think there's a lot of points out there, but I think that that's a reasonable goal. I think that's something that we're shooting for. But first and foremost, we got to get in those playoffs, and once we do, we know we can make a run.
All right. Thank you very much, Wando. Congrats again on the victory, and have a safe flight home.
There you have Chris Wondolowski saying, if it was up to me, I'd be doing this until age 94. Making the playoffs first and foremost is their goal, and they can't just depend on the last day. He said they want to be in the top 4. He wants to host a game. So there you have Chris Wondolowski. Also just chatting a little bit about the game, and in the game, he says, we wear teams down. He says in that 60th, 70th minute, they are really kind of able to get over teams and be able to wear them down. Joined by the rest of the team here, Alex Morgan, Joel Soria, and Jamon Moore, of course. Jamon Moore, your thoughts on what Wondo had to say there?
Well, there's quite a bit. We talked to him about what's been working. Why is it that suddenly this turnaround has happened? And he said it's been on both sides of the ball. It's been first it starts with the defense, and then it says the offense. He even got a bit tactical on us. He talked about there should never be a flat line on a cross that we got beat on against Portland, and it's great because he's the 9 at the front of the chain, but he understands the value of everything that's happening behind him. I do think we're going to get to see a Coach Wondolowski, whether it's at the academy level, or as an assistant or potential head coach for the Earthquakes far down the road. He understands the value of how the chain of events works together and how these things feed each other. He understands the importance of the chemistry, and he understands too that what it's going to take now to go above and make it so that it's not just about beating the Galaxy and beating Vancouver. Now it needs to be about performing against teams like Portland and Seattle. And it's going to take 90 minutes of focus. It's going to take 90 minutes of executing the way they did tonight for 90 minutes, now against a higher level of quality in the league. Don't expect it to be a 4-0 type game, but they need to be able to give themselves a chance. And they can't just be getting run off the field by high score lines against the top of the league and expect to come into the playoffs and have a real chance.
Joel Soria, you heard from the captain there, and you just heard from Jamon there. We talked about it on the last show. We said that making the playoffs is one thing for this team, but going far in the playoffs and being able to beat the bigger teams in this league, the teams a little bit further above them in the table, the Portlands and Seattles of the world is definitely in tension. Obviously, this LAFC game just a few weeks ago has really catapulted this team into a pole position to get this playoff spot, but there's still a little bit of more work to do as well, and Wondo kind of referred to that.
Yeah, without a doubt. He was very candid with his comments and also very astute on a tactical side of things, as Jamon was highlighting. But no, you're totally right, Charles. I've been talking and beating this drum for the last couple of weeks. I like what I'm seeing from the Earthquakes. We cannot look past the good performances that they put together, but we have to be realistic. The Quakes have put solid performances against teams that have been somewhat struggling compared to almost at a rate that the Quakes were just a couple of weeks ago, and that's definitely the case with the Galaxy tonight. They got a good win against a team that is having a historical woeful year, but that doesn't take away from the fact that the Quakes had a ton of bright spots all over the field, and that they're turning a corner, as I've mentioned in the past as well. Now, what they need to do, though, in my opinion, is they need to take this confidence. They need to take this Bushido ball and try to smack teams like the Timbers, like the Sounders, right across the face. And they're going to get their chance not too far from tonight. They're going to be able to take on the Seattle Sounders, a team that put 7 past them, and really show what they're made of. And also, let's not forget that they also play the Caps following the game against the Sounders, who happened to win tonight against LAFC. I think these two upcoming matches are definitely going to test the Quakes in ways that they haven't been tested in the last in this past game against the Galaxy.
Yes, certainly. And we'll show the fixtures before we end the show tonight and show everybody where the Quakes are in the table. Alex Morgan, you had a chance to ask Chris Wondolowski a question and also ask him about that hat that a lot of folks really like seeing and potentially want to have one of those themselves.
Yeah, Charles, between Wando's hat and Matías's shirting, the purple, I honestly think the Quakes are vying to be the most fashion-forward team in Major League Soccer right now. But on a more serious note, what stood out to me from his press conference was that he mentioned the interplay between their pressing and their attacking, how being able to win the ball higher up the field allows them to create more dangerous chances and put four past the Galaxy like they did. And I think that indicates to me that the change in pressing was really important. That adaptation that they made before the LAFC game, their 2-1 victory over LAFC a couple weeks ago, that was the turning point. I think that and probably JT Marcinkowski's introduction in the same game. I think if the Quakes make the playoffs this year, we'll look back and say that those changes are what made the difference for this team.
For everybody that's tuning in, we are Black and Azul. Charles Wollin coming to you with Jamon Moore, Alex Morgan, Joel Soria. Our producer and director is Jason Sholl. Just want to let everybody know that we have cracked now 600 subscribers. We'd like to kind of keep that going. So if you want to continue the momentum that we're on, please join us. Please subscribe. Maybe tell an aunt or an uncle or a friend or a sibling or whomever to join and subscribe Black and Azul. Make sure that you go ahead and like our episode this evening if you like what you're seeing. Of course, you can give us a thumbs down as well. We welcome any feedback. Any feedback to us is good feedback as we create not just this show for you, but we want to create community. That's a big piece of what we do. We are going to be joined by Andy Rios in just a second. I know there are some questions here just about some of the subs, and I know that Matías Almeyda only made one sub on the weekend, and here he makes a full bunch of changes. Cade Cowell coming on, celebrating his 17th birthday, and getting assist for that final goal for Nick Lima. That is a notable this evening. But the substitutions this evening, Jamon Moore.
Yeah, the subs brought energy. Now, my concern was that they were too late in the game, and that the starters are going to probably be the same starters that are going to play, against Seattle Sounders on Sunday. One of the things to note here is that quite often the team has had 3 days of rest. This time they will get the 4th day of rest. There's probably some of that thinking going in, and I remember the conversation you guys were having after the Portland game about the possibility of roster turnover tonight and seeing some of that rotation. It didn't happen, but we did get some key players off the pitch a little bit earlier tonight. We did get to see the youth injection. Congratulations to Cade Cowell on his 17th birthday with the assist, homegrown to homegrown, to be able to finish that. And when you think about it, 3 of the goals tonight out of the 4 came from homegrowns. So a really good night for the Quakes youth. In fact, just the past few games have really been a great night for the Quakes youth. There's another Quakes youth, so to speak, Jackson Newell, who with a brand new contract had an amazing passing night. And I wanted to bring up his passing chart here because I think potentially lost in the great game that we got from Judson and the great game from the attacking core was how much Jackson Newell got on the ball and really was kind of the maestro tonight. A lot of times he sits back and hits deep balls, but he really was all over the pitch. So Jason, if you have that graphic ready, I'd like to be able to pull that up and be able to show it. He had 5 key passes on the night. That might be his high for the season. I'll need to double check that. But that's what you see in yellow there. But a lot of green. You see that his actions are really kind of spread all over the pitch. He was everywhere. He didn't keep to one spot. He was very, very mobile. And particularly we see him drifting a bit more on that left side because to probably help with some of the overloads and things that the team was trying to do to create mismatches by bringing some of the players central, and some of the central players would go wide when that would happen, as we began to talk about a little bit earlier tonight. So really something tactically quite different from the Quakes, quite different that Matías Almeyda had for the team tonight. when you play a team like the Galaxy, 4 times in a season, you got to kind of keep them guessing, right? And so, that's what we saw tonight was, I think, Matías Almeyda trying to show something a bit different, giving Nick Lima a lot of license to go forward despite having to cover Christian Pavone, where we've seen him not go forward the 2 previous games and just kind of stick to him. So it really did pay off because the Galaxy didn't really know what hit them.
And look, Jamon, I think the Galaxy did make it really easy for the Quakes in the middle of the park. In their last 2 games against San Jose, the Galaxy played with like a really tight defensive mid-block and shut down all of the space in the middle of the field. And they did that pretty successfully, but they just weren't able to do that tonight. Tonight, their defense looked a lot more porous. And I think that was because Chicharito basically refused to press. It was probably the laziest performance I've ever seen. And that gave Newell and Judson time to find penetrating passes in behind and time to move the ball through the middle. And I think that also gave Rios space in which to operate in the middle. We're hopefully going to be speaking with Andy Rios here in a couple moments. And he had another fantastic game for the Quakes. So they're all cylinders firing in that midfield right now.
Yeah, we're going to get to Andy Rios and chat about his impact as well. For the record, that is now 3 goals in 4 matches for Andy Rios. Who would have thought? But we'll get to him in just a minute after he has his post-match comments. I want to bring up another quick graphic that we've got of Judson, and he is the leading tackler in Major League Soccer. Here is his heat map, and Jamon, you're the graphics and the GIFs and the GIFs person here, but as you can see, his base of position right there is right at the top in front of the back 4, protecting the back 4. But his work rate tonight really, really key as well to allowing Jackson Newell to do what he does best, be able to get on the ball, be able to play those balls over the top, be able to play those progressive passes.
Yeah, and we also notice, and if you bring that graphic back up again, you also notice that he's got a bit of that heat up in the upper right-hand corner when he was covering Pavone while Lima would be getting forward. It was his job, if Nick decided to get forward, to go outright and be able to shut down Pavone. And they had really good communication going on. They were always pretty much in the right place at the right time. We know that Judson covers a ton of ground. I've done the charts before. It shows that he covers more ground than any other central midfielder in Major League Soccer. He's got the most tackles in the league. There was a chart earlier this week on Twitter from at and then the Hex. Charles Wilson was a really good chart that showed just how much pressure Judson brings on players. Without a doubt, in my mind, he is the most important player to the Quakes being able to do what they do. We saw what happens in games where he's not in. It's not the same. It's not the same way of playing defense. It prevents things from being able to be connected at different points. He really does control a lot of things. Now, we've also seen that he's got a different core that he's working with in the last few games. He's had. Sorry, go ahead,
Jamon. I want you to plug your headphones in because you're really grainy and you sound a bit like a robot. So we all love you, but it was like walking through sandpaper hearing you, and even someone to Darth Jamon. So
sorry about that.
Just
I will go on mute and try to fix it.
And I appreciated what you said there, and I want the other lads to jump in here, and Joel on Judson tonight, just chatting about him and his performance and really what he does, and it goes back to this one tweet that Tom Marshall put out. He is the N'Golo Kanté of Major League Soccer. He's the leading tackler in Major League Soccer. It's not just about tackles, it's about ground that he covers, but he really is the person that protects the back 4 and, again, allows Jackson Newell to do what he does. But before we get back to Judson and chatting about him in central midfield, we are going to hear from Andy Rios this evening on his performance. Stand by and enjoy, everybody.
All right, we are now joined by forward Andy Rios. Andy will be speaking in Spanish and will be translating all of his answers into English. So let's go ahead and start with Alicia Rodriguez.
Thank you, Andy. Congrats on the win tonight and on the goal. It seems like you are in a really good vein of form right now. How are you feeling? You feel like you're able to kind of be one of the top options for the team in terms of goals moving forward?
Parece que estás en buena forma, en buen ritmo. ¿Cómo te sientes? ¿Qué puedes decir respecto a eso? Y si crees que vas a seguir creciendo en esa forma y contribuir.
Hola, buenas noches, muchas gracias.
Good evening, thank you very much.
Y sí, la verdad que estoy feliz por el momento que estoy pasando, pero que también estamos pasando todos como equipo.
But I'm very thankful for what we're doing and what I'm doing personally, but I'm also excited and thankful for what we're doing as a team.
Creo que estamos creciendo, como dije recién todos, eso se ve no solo en los resultados, sino en la manera de jugar, y bueno, en este caso también hoy con los goles de nuestros laterales, entonces creo que todos estamos en esa forma creciendo y vamos a trabajar para seguir así.
Like I said before, I think all of us in the team have been growing, and I think that's reflective of what we've been doing so far. So I'm excited to continue on that path and continue to contribute, and the growth of everyone has been seen and will continue to be seen as we go on.
Thank you, Andy. Let's go to Jamon Moore.
Hi, Andy. Congratulations on the goal and the win. Just last week, you and I talked about you were taking on more defensive responsibilities in your new role as a underneath forward. Tonight we saw, some of the offense come out. Is that an indication that you're getting much more comfortable with both the offensive and defensive responsibilities? And also, how is your fitness? It seems like you've been playing a lot of 90-minute games, and without another forward on the roster right now, with Danny Houston hurt, is the ask that you're able to play 90 minutes in every game to help the team right now?
Hace un par de días hablamos de que tu nueva posición, que te pones un poco más hacia atrás, ayudas en la parte defensiva, subes y bajas mucho. Me parece que está dando resultados. ¿Cómo te sientes ahora? Y también el hecho de que si tal vez estás gastando más porque hay menos delanteros, como el caso de Dani, que está lesionado.
Sí, yo he jugado en esta posición años atrás. Creo que en mi manera de jugar, el tener más contacto con el balón me hace sentir más confianza, me hace sentir más seguro. Es obvio que seguramente uno alterna, ¿no?, momentos buenos y malos dentro de un partido, pero estamos pasando, como dije antes, por una buena fase.
Like I've said in the past, I have played in this position before, where I drop back a bit and play more defensively. I think I feel well right now, but definitely not new to this new role. I think we're all going through this new phase.
Y como yo siempre digo, que desde esa posición, al cambiar, haber jugado de número 9, creo que yo siento esa obligación de llegar al área, entonces quizá estar en la posición más atrás, en los momentos de atacar o de generar la jugada, el contraataque, también siento el llegar al área como pasó hoy. Entonces creo que esa combinación está haciendo que pueda sentirme bien y bueno, con los goles uno siempre agarra confianza, ¿no?
I'm a player that feels very comfortable with the ball, like to have control of the ball. So my natural instincts sometimes kick in, and I want to drop back, be a little more defensive, grab the ball, steal the ball, and try to contribute in that sense. So that's been helping me so far, and it's working. And I think I overall feel a lot more confident, and it's helping us out as a team right now.
Thank you, Andy. Let's go to Alex Morgan.
Hi, Andy. Congrats on the win and on the goal and assist as well. It was, I think, Carlos Fierro who played that cross in for your goal. You guys were signed around the same time last year and have played really well together recently. In what ways has that connection with Carlos, enhanced the way you guys play up top together?
Que el pase del gol hoy fue Carlos Fierro, que también fueron firmados con el club al mismo tiempo el año pasado. Parece que se están dando a conocer, se están llevando bien en la cancha. Platícanos un poco más de esa química que tienen ahorita.
Sí, yo creo que con Carlos tenemos una amistad, ¿no? Más allá de trabajar juntos acá en San José. Y nos hablamos mucho, la verdad, en el momento que llegamos a mí me tocó jugar un poco más, a él menos por cuestiones de algunas molestias, ¿no? Que él tenía. Pero bueno, hoy está muy bien, también está físicamente, creo yo, haciéndolo muy bien y siempre tratamos de combinar, ¿no? Esas cosas, de marcar movimientos, de cuando él tiene el balón, saber dónde me voy a mover y bueno, creo que tiene muy buena lectura en cuanto a eso, ¿no? Que no tirar centros a cualquier lado, sino que mirar siempre a un compañero y bueno, esa virtud a la hora de atacar es muy importante y se está notando a la hora de finalizar las jugadas.
Carlos and I have a really good friendship beyond the technical or the football aspect of it. I got to play a little bit more last year than he did due to some of the injuries he suffered. But regardless, I think both of us have been getting along really well on the pitch. He's in a terrific shape, and so I feel MI as well. We both feel really, really well right now. So I think that's reflective of what we're doing game after game, and it's just a matter of us continuing to help each other. And he has a very unique vision, and that helps out. That helps me out, and it helps the team out as well.
Thank you, Andy. Two more questions, starting with Joel Soria.
Buenas noches, Andy. Felicidades por la victoria. Si no me equivoco, tú has estado involucrado en 4 de los últimos 7 goles. Hubo un tiempo, Andy, donde se le criticaba mucho a cómo jugaba el equipo y cómo jugaban más que nada en temas ofensivos. Y quizás también allí una crítica o dos contra cómo jugabas tú individualmente. ¿Qué ha cambiado más en el tema personal y en el tema táctico para poder superar esa agonía dentro de la cancha? Gracias.
Bueno, gracias. Creo que realmente uno tiene que estar preparado para eso, ¿no? Siempre pasamos por malos momentos y uno tiene que bancar esas críticas. La verdad que sí lo he visto por momentos, pero no me molesta en absoluto porque sé que confío en mí, confío en mis condiciones, confío en el estilo de juego que nos muestra el cuerpo técnico. Por momentos no se estaba dando y cuando me tocaba estar ahí arriba quizá no tenía tantas oportunidades, tampoco el equipo estaba pasando una buena fase, entonces hoy la cosa es diferente y creo que el fútbol se trata de eso, ¿no? De momentos. Hoy en los momentos difíciles hay que hacerse fuerte y en los momentos que nos toca como quizá este pasaje hay que disfrutarlos y obviamente estamos enfocados en seguir creciendo y que esto dure, ¿no?
Thank you, Andy. And one last question from Carlos Ramirez.
Andy, ¿cómo te va? Un fuerte abrazo. Carlos Mauricio Ramírez de Telemundo. ¿Cómo estás?
Hola, Carlos. Buenas noches. Muy bien.
Andy, un fuerte abrazo. Andy, esta versión tuya que hemos visto en los últimos 4 partidos, ¿a qué Andy Rios se parece más? ¿Al de Vasco, al de Defensa y Justicia o al que lo rompió todo en Cuenca?
Buena pregunta. Bueno, en este caso, de esta posición jugué más en Defensa y Justicia y en algunos partidos en Vasco. En Ecuador me tocó jugábamos de otra manera porque jugábamos con 2 delanteros, pero en ese lugar yo siempre me tiraba más atrás, un poco como lo que estamos haciendo hoy. Pero hoy es un poco más definido, ¿no? Mi posición atrás de Bondo en este caso y me parece que, como decimos, ¿no? Estamos pasando un gran momento.
All right. Thank you very much, Andy. Congrats again on the 3 points and have a safe flight home.
There you have it, Andy. Rios saying, I'm very thankful for what I'm doing personally and what we're doing as a team. He says he feels very well right now as we're going through this new phase. He says that he's a player that likes to have control of the ball. And sometimes he wants to be a little bit more defensive. So that's why he tracks back more and sometimes has to remind himself not to track back. On Carlos Fierro and his kind of partnership in attack, he says that they also have a very good friendship, and they both came in around the same time last year. And although he got to play more than Carlos did, they're both progressing together. Black and Azul live post-game here, episode number 65, joined by the rest of the team, Alex Morgan, Joel Soria, and Jamon Moore. Andy Rios this evening just scored his third goal in the last 4 games. And, you know, I understand that obviously Magnus Eriksson left this team and left a void, and he's now playing in that specific position. But Joel Soria, Andy Rios is really starting to make an impact with his team. And of course, there's been some critical comments of Andy Rios, but he is a player that is starting to make his mark and score goals, important ones.
Yeah, I actually asked him exactly about the critics and the critiques that have been made or that were made about Andy Rios, and he said that they didn't faze him, that he had seen them, but he wasn't bothered by them at all. He recognizes that that's a part of the game, that comes with being a professional soccer player, and that soccer is all about stages, good stages, bad stages, neutral stages. And it happened that they were in a bad stage. Now the team is obviously on the other side of the spectrum, enjoying lopsided victories over arch rivals like the Galaxy. He also talked about, not being able to generate as much during that dry spell, given to the lack of service that he was getting up top. And now he obviously was talking about how things have been dramatically different. We talk about the partnership that he has with Carlos Fierro. Andy Rios has been involved 4 times in the last 7 goals. We talk about productivity for the amount of money. We talk about cost per goal. And, Andy has really picked it up. It's evident that he has really picked it up, and so has Carlos Fierro. A while back, you were able to make the case that both of those players were shortcomings, that they were misses, that they were flops. And now it seems that the narrative has completely turned around. But again, how long can this team keep it up is the biggest question, right? We have seen this from the San Jose Earthquakes in the past. They are a very, very patchy team. We talk about highs of highs, lows of lows. It's volatile. Now, if the team can obviously keep it at this pace for the remainder of not only the season, but the postseason, then you have a much better shot, and you have a Quakes team that you probably haven't seen since 2012. But in regards to Rios today, obviously, speaking about the collective triumph more than the personal one, and I think that just says a lot about where the team is at mentally. They're in a really, really good place.
Joel, I think one thing that was really positive for the Quakes tonight, that gave me a lot of hope that this team will be able to continue to improve and take this momentum into this weekend's game against Seattle, was actually a lot of Andy Rios' comments and his answers. Because as Marcelo says in the comments, I had no idea Andy Rios had such a technical mindset. That's what Marcelo said. This is a telling press conference. And I absolutely agree. I think he talked about his role as a second forward in such detail. I think that sort of insight that he offered shows just how much he's figured out his new role, this role as a second forward. And look, I think this was by far his best performance that I can remember. I think he was probably my man of the match, either him or Nick Lima, just because his pressing was good, his distribution was good, His runs were good. Everything was good. He gets flack because his role as a second forward is more defensive and more facilitatory, but he took center stage tonight. I think in addition to that more quiet defensive work that he does, he was really good at moving the ball and getting the ball wide. That's something that the Quakes were missing, that went missing for the Quakes once they sold Magnus Eriksson this summer. But it feels like Rios has finally learned to play that role. And then secondly, his runs were also really good. That's how he scored from Fierro's cross against Vancouver last week. That's how he set up Lima tonight. And that's also how he got his goal tonight, those runs into the box. And now I think he's got 3 goals in his last 4 games. So for me, he's done more than enough to quell the doubts that I've had about him.
In large part, that's what you hope that you get from a journeyman like Rios, right? Experience both on and off the field, both tactically and personally as a soccer player. Today, yes, he was expanding a lot on his tactical knowledge, as was Chris and as was Matías Almeyda, per usual. But Carlos Ramirez actually asked Rios a question around what type of Rios, the type of Rios that we're seeing today is most relatable with which one in the past, during his time with Defensa y Justicia, during his time with Cuenca, where I think he had like a goal per game average, or during his time in the Brazilian league. So, I mean, right off the bat, you're talking about a player who's played in the Brazilian league, in the Argentine Superliga, as well as in the Ecuadorian league. And that's not to mention the other pit stops that he's had throughout his career, right? America being one of them, Liga MX in general, because he also played for Leones Negros. But, what I'm trying to nail here is that he also mentioned about how he's played in different forward roles, how he's played more of a holding forward, more of a target type of forward, and then also during his time with Defensa y Justicia, if I'm not mistaken, he played more of a 2 forwards in the attack, and he says that's similar to the style that he's playing now in San Jose. So yeah, just obviously today he showed his cards when regarding to tactics, and that's obviously very positive for anyone who's listening in, because it tells you that players like Andy, like Chris, are not only hearing Matías, but what he's actually saying is sticking.
Yeah, and I want to go back to some of Matías's comments about Andy tonight, because what Matías told us effectively is that he interprets that role differently than Magnus, right? He certainly is in the Magnus role, but he interprets it differently, and he says he's a striker who smashes into the box, right? That's not who Magnus Eriksson was. Magnus Eriksson was more of a distributor. He even presses differently than Andy. And I think it was really important to recognize that the Andy Rios that we saw at MLS's back, and before that even, and the Andy Rios that we're seeing now are really completely 2 different Andys. One was asked to play a solitary number 9 role, and the other is being asked to play underneath Chris Wondolowski and to be more of a defensive player, right? And one of the things that he told us the other day in his press conference was that one of my jobs is to stop the counterattacks. So think of Judson being behind him. A lot of the times defensive actions we see go to other players because of the actions of other players on the pitch. In this case, a lot of the steals, the interceptions, the tackles, the clearances, the things that we see down the field are happening quite a bit because of the type of work that's happening upfield. Chris Wondolowski said the same thing about their press. Their press wasn't working right. And now the press is working right, and we see a different result. And that's in no small part to the work that Chris Wondolowski and Andy Rios are doing together in that press. And when do they go to a particular center back, or when do they pressure the goalkeeper? When do they go to a particular outside back? So I think it's really helpful that Andy Rios got put in front of the fans tonight on this show. Of course, a lot of the players know that now their press conferences are being seen more because of Black and Azul, and thanks to the fans, for tuning in. And I think it's really great that they have an opportunity to be seen and to be heard in front of the fans, so that the fans can see them in some ways the way that the media has other opportunities to get to see them. To me, one of the most important traits also about Andy that Matías said, I believe it was in his last press conference, is Andy just keeps running. And while he wasn't playing well, what Matías needed from him was to take a spot for 90 minutes and continue that pressure. And to be able to go 90 minutes when other players were unable to go 90 minutes because they weren't fit enough to do it. Andy Rios was. Was he playing at his best level? No. But Matías appreciated the level of effort that he gave, and he equated it tonight to the type of effort that Magnus Eriksson used to give. And we all know that whether you liked Magnus the way he played or you didn't like he played, you could never fault his effort. I think in 2 or 3 years, if Andy sticks with this team, we'll probably think very similar things about him. Maybe we'll like the way he interpreted his particular position. Maybe we won't. But I do think that we won't be able to fault his effort.
All right, we're going to take a quick question from our commenters and questionnaires, and it looks like everybody's a little torn on the man of the match today, and that's good. We like to see that. STP1 Core says, is Beeson a full-time starter? This is a really good question, because Tanner Beeson has been in the team for the last 5 matches in a row, and his partner is Florian Jungwirth for 4 out of those 5 matches. And in 4 out of those 5 matches, they've only let in 2 goals. So, lads, what do we make of the Quakes rookie, the Quakes youngster, and being a full-time starter in this team right now?
Well, I think we found that out last game against the Timbers. Look, you had Alanis healthy and back in the mix, and Matías decided to slot Alanis in the right center back position and not in the left center back position, which happens to be his natural position, given that he's an ambidextrous defender, but has a really wicked left foot. And this time around, when you have Jungwirth back in the mix and you have Alanis and Beeson, he decides to keep Beeson as the starting left center back alongside Jungwirth. I think that says it all. Beeson has won his place in this 11, surprisingly. I say surprisingly because it's no easy task to outbeat a player like Alanis for that starting position. That was Alanis's spot to lose. We had been saying this time and time again. In my opinion, I'll say it again. I have no issues in saying it. To me, Alanis is one of the Quakes' best players. I think he's in the top 3 without a doubt. Skills, when referring to raw skills and abilities, but Beeson has shown a tenacity and a hunger and a leadership that very few Quakes players were willing to show when the team was susceptible, and that I'm sure did it for Matías. That totally convinced him, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that moment really happened in the LAFC game. Beeson was just an absolute beast in that game. He bossed around quite, the LAFC attackers all night. His stats were off the charts good for a center back. And remember, when LAFC played against him the first time, they made him look bad in spots. They really did. And man, did he just turn that around. Something about Almeyda, I feel like he looks at that and he goes, okay, the kid showed me something. I'm going to keep sticking him out there and see if he can keep doing it. And he's putting that challenge to him. And for the most part, he had a gaffe in the last game, and you could say he had 2. Maybe he was a little bit, too anxious to get in and kick that ball in the net instead of letting it go in. But again, if you kind of step back, if he steps back and then all of a sudden, the ball doesn't go in the net, we're going like, Beeson, why didn't you kick the ball in, right? So, I'll give the kid a break. He's gonna take some lumps as a rookie. I really like that Almeyda continues to play him because if nothing else, I think he is the left center back of the future. And that's almost without a doubt at this point. He's already shown how much he's grown just in 9 games. So whether or not Alanis is brought back next year, I know, Joel, you're going to try to get an answer on the loan as quickly as we can get it. And whether that was a 1-year or 2-year loan for Alanis, since there has been some confusion. But while we're waiting for that, there's a possibility that, that money is going to go to a different spot, maybe a 9 or a 10 next year, and may not, bring back Alanis. And that might mean that Beeson is the man at left center back. And that might be what he's cameoing for right now. That might be what, Almeyda is thinking in his head is, I don't know if I'm going to get Alanis back next year. I need to give this kid some reps and I need to see what he can do. So far, for the most part, he's growing into the role. He's stepping up in more games than not.
Jamon, you bring up a very sensitive sequence in the game against the Timbers, which was when Beeson jumped the gun and got a bit selfish and wanted to put the ball in the back of the net with a ton of vigor. Now, I think that what we saw as a flaw, Matías saw as a virtue in Beeson. I think that's exactly what he's looking for from all of his players, but mostly from his youngsters, right? He wants those younger players to step in and take risks. He wants them to show character that youngsters in this league don't show. He wants them to live and breathe soccer. And that is, in my opinion, in retrospect now, I think that's what Beeson showed. And we were missing to see that after the game. But now as, time has progressed and as I reflect on Matías's comments, and most importantly, as I noticed that Beeson was back in the starting 11, I think that was it. I think it's those type of actions that really, really hit home with Matías. And, he might sit there and think, you know what? This is exactly what I need from these youngsters. I need that bite. I need that passion. I need that hunger. Beeson showed it. A couple of other youngsters have shown it as well. Jackson Newell showed it early on, and that's why Jackson Newell has now turned into the instrumental player for the Quakes. It's those small things that go a long way for Matías.
Yeah, if you're the head of any team, whether it's in sports, whether it's in business, you have to give people the opportunity to succeed and fail. You have to let them learn from those mistakes. If they're always looking to you for direction, they're never going to figure it out for themselves. I think Almeyda looks at someone like Beeson and says he's figuring it out for himself.
I'm glad you brought up the mistakes, by the way, because how many mistakes did Beeson not have prior to the game tonight? Or how many mistakes did he not have during his starts and during his playing time? I mean, he had a handful of errors. I think back to the ball that he handed to an LAFC attacker in Los Angeles, which resulted in a goal. But Beeson has managed to, put his head down, work hard, and now has convinced, Matías that he's worth being a starting 11 player above a player like Alanis. Remarkable, honestly.
STP1 Core, congratulations. You are the commenter of this episode. Yeah, we heard you. I heard you. I saw you. And we see you. We don't just see you, though. We see everybody in here as well. So just want to shout out to our supporters that are tuning in. There's still 70+ people tuning into this episode. Also want to shout out another fan tuning in from Houston who is a Chivas fan, just so he can get news about Matías Almeyda, because that's what Matías Almeyda meant to him. And shout out to EL Yonis 500 here, and says he's going to get a Quakes jersey with Almeyda on the back. So for those folks that kind of wonder about Almeyda and what he brings with him, we have a fan tuning in from Houston who was part of his former club just to this episode. Let's go ahead and bring up the next couple fixtures for the Quakes. and see what they've got coming up here. Seattle, of course, on the weekend, we will be live at the stadium. Black and Azul join us for live pregame and postgame coverage. And then they're off for a full week. And then they go up to Portland to play the Whitecaps, as you can see there. So 3-0 victory against the Whitecaps a week ago, but they go for another game up in Portland against the Whitecaps. Kind of an interesting fixture at a different ground up there. But I guess it doesn't matter because there's not going to be fans. Then they're at home to Salt Lake. Then it's LAFC and the Sounders to end things. We'll go ahead and bring up the live table as well, just to show you that. Quakes sitting here in the 7th position on 23 points, 18 matches played. The Whitecaps, they did win tonight. They beat LAFC, so they're just behind the Quakes. And that match probably will have a little bit of weight to it, that one that we just showed you. Coming up in about 10 days' time. But just in front of the Quakes, Minnesota United, FC Dallas, and LAFC. So it's very muddled from the 4 all the way down to the 9th position. But of course, the Quakes taking care of business tonight, knocking the LA Galaxy back down to the cellar in that number 12, that 12th spot. Who knows how many teams are in the West or in the East? I've lost count at this point how many teams are added to this league. Final thoughts tonight. I'm going to go ahead and start with Alex Morgan.
Yeah, Charles, tonight was, I think, a really fun game to watch for the Quakes. It was a fun press conference and a fun show tonight. To me, it's just remarkable the turnaround that this team has had in the last month. I mean, I remember when the team that lost 3-2 to the Galaxy back in early September or August looked completely different. The Quakes were bottom of the table then. They were overwhelmed, overran. And the Galaxy looked strong back then. But now the tables have turned. The Galaxy are at the bottom of the table. They looked awful. And the Quakes were flying tonight. I think they're at 64% right now odds to make the playoffs. Looking at that fixture list, those games against Vancouver and Real Salt Lake are going to be really key. And if they can get a result against Seattle this weekend, that'll be huge as well, because I don't think that's expected. Seattle are really strong. They beat them 7-1 the last time they played the Quakes. And so if they can nick a result there, that'll be a huge confidence boost for this team.
Jamon Moore, welcome back to the program. We missed you. I missed you, so I can make fun of you again, and you can make fun of me, and we can have a good back and forth, kind of like how Joel and Alex do, but maybe not as intense, but maybe sometimes more intense. With that being said, final thoughts.
Yeah, it was a fun night. I'm happy to be back, and sorry I had to be gone for 2 episodes there. But I think the real test obviously is going to be Seattle on Sunday, without a doubt. I'm not going to say that the Quakes have to win, but I do think that they need to show that they've made some steps forward that are going to be lasting, that we're going to continue to see them play at a particular level for the rest of the season. Remember, this is the team that missed the playoffs because they couldn't win a game coming down the stretch last year. They need to change that narrative. If they get this far and then lose the next 5, this narrative is not only going to stick, it's going to stick with Matías Almeyda very hard for the future. And so to me, this is getting things off on the right step, but it is the LA Galaxy, and that right now is a team that's in last place, despite the fact of the LA Galaxy name and what that means to this rivalry. It's not the LA Galaxy that we're used to seeing. And now they are going to need to get wins against teams that are in overall better positions than the Galaxy. Going forward, they're going to have an LAFC home game, and that will be a tough game. LAFC, for the most part, has played better since the Quakes faced them, and they're going to have these games against Portland and Seattle. It's going to take a bare minimum of 2 wins, and it's probably going to take a little bit more than that to ensure a playoff spot, particularly if MLS is going to stick with this narrative of points per game. Colorado's not even playing games, and somehow they're going to back into the playoffs at this point.
Thank you, Jamon. And Joel Soria, your final word on tonight.
Tonight was a convincing victory against the Galaxy that warrants a ton of merits, but it's not mission accomplished yet for the San Jose Earthquakes. They need to go out and continue to play the Bushido ball that a lot of you fell in love with. And when Bushido ball appears to be in its good form, I advise every team in the league to stay on their toes, because if you're not ready, then the Quakes can do damage like they did tonight.
All right. 4 wins out of the last 5 for the San Jose Earthquakes. They have the MLS Cup champion 2 times before the end of the season. I think it's really about getting those results against the teams above them in the table, continuing to have a good performance potentially against LAFC, and at least be able to have that confidence against a Seattle Sounders team under Matías Almeyda that they have not been able to do over the last 2 years. It really comes down to that. So our associate producer is Aaron Sholl. Our executive producer and director is Jason Sholl. Joel Soria, Alex Morgan, Jamon Moore. My name is Charles Wollin. During this pandemic, please stay safe, wear a mask, take care of yourselves. And with everything that's going on in this country, racial issues and tension going on right now, a lot of climate change issues to the surface, please remember to vote. Please remember to vote. And we want to stress that. We will stress that the next couple shows as well. Thank you so much for tuning into Black and Azul. We will see you next time. Have a good night.